He didn't like it, but this was something he was compelled to do because his own mother told him to. And but like I say, that never would have came to pass if it hadn't been for my mother
That's
knowing in
awesome.
her wisdom. Yeah. And so over the years, now my dad he's 80 years old now, both he and my mom, and they are very loving toward in a way that I could never have imagined toward both Kirk and I, and definitely toward Tyler and Rachel, our children. So yeah, I think that, and I feel, first of all, that a huge part of it was when it comes to parenting and motherhood and just your family growing, you want them to have an easier time in life than maybe you had, especially for my parents' generation. And I
Yeah.
know that my mother and my father deep down believed that by making a decision to marry someone who was white and who had a major disability, that I was just going to have a harder life than they would have chosen for me. So I understood. I feel like their concern was out of from a loving place. But I'm glad that I'm glad that I listened to. I mean, I prayed a lot about it. I thought a lot about it. I actually even we broke up for a time because I really just didn't. I was afraid. There were some things that I was afraid of societally. But then in the end, I knew that I needed to follow what was right for me, what was in my heart, and what I believed was the right thing. And I'm glad I did. We just celebrated being married for 35 years.
Yay! That is so awesome. Y'all are,
Yeah.
I wish people could see what a wonderful couple you are and how this man is so crazy about you and the way you look at him and love him. It is a gift to me to watch y'all's relationship and then to see how your two children who are now adults have just flourished into, these successful professionals. How was it in rearing them? I remember Kirk told a story in class about when Tyler turned 13, he had this talk with him about being a black man
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with the police. And I'm listening to him going, oh my goodness, for you to have that kind of awareness, but to see your son in that light, and trying to help your son navigate multiple identities. You all have done an amazing job. But talk about what was it like in rearing your children in a world that isn't always so understanding?
I'm glad you asked about that because that is so much a part of who I am and what really matters to me. I was really fortunate in being born in Texas and living in an extended family. I actually lived with my grandmother. Uh, and as I mentioned, my grandparents had that very close relationship. And I didn't realize that we were in a segregated community. I mean, I was very little, so all I ever saw was my family, and so I'm a family person. First of all, I just love family and having family relationships, and so I've been really intentional as a parent. Um, in my own situation, it was wonderful for me to be living with my grandmother, had my brothers and cousins and aunts and uncles around. But another thing that happened was that my mother and father, they moved to Seattle, and my brothers and I stayed in Texas for over a year while they were getting settled. And you know so that was an important decision for them, and it really was the path that they had to take. And then when it came time, and I didn't really, I didn't feel that there was any negative effect on my life because of that decision, because I was surrounded by so much love and so many wonderful family members all the time. And so, but when Tyler, who's the oldest of our two kids, was born, I just felt this very strong draw to just spend time with him and be with him, and really just focus on on raising him the best that I could. And that actually led me to leave the work that I was doing at the time, because I just couldn't see myself not being with him. And I think part of that had to do with my own life experience. It just shaped me into really wanting to do things in a different way, a way that was right for me. And so I'm really, really glad about that. And one of the things that when he got to be preschool age, Kirk and I got so lucky, just happened to meet some people who were part of a cooperative preschool. And that meant that it was a school, they called it a lab school, in part because the community colleges in our area, they operated preschools that had a component of a teacher education. So a parent education rather. So there was support for parents of young kids who are trying to figure out all these different things as along the developmental continuum of what to expect as your children are growing, and sort of just basically a community of parents. And then there was the preschool, and the parents came and were expected to and did participate in the school. So that was just perfect for me, because I wasn't ready or willing to let my baby just go and be in the hands of people that I didn't know. And we just from that point were able to be very hands-on, very involved in Tyler and Rachel's education, so we could help support the curriculum, for instance, and have decisions about what kinds of things we were going to be learning about, the children were going to be learning about. And it came from a place of, so if we had our children were the focus. That's the main thing that really drew me to that type of a model. And I was able to participate. Kirk and I both were able, but I was the main person able to participate in that for several years, because it went through the span of both Tyler and Rachel being in preschool. And so it was fantastic, because the school had a commitment to anti-bias education. And that was something that really was in line with our values, the idea that children are very aware of their environment and differences between people, and building their own identity, and yet being able to have that be paid attention to and focused on in a way that was developmentally appropriate for them and empowering. That is what was really, really wonderful, because here we are, a family, and both Tyler and Rachel, very early readers. And what I experienced was that I knew this because I sensed it, and also because people vocalized it to me, about my family, thinking that we somehow were diminished, or we were seen as less than, really, by a variety of people. Like, oh, so much about the negative about what we possibly couldn't do. Like, for instance, oh, you're the only driver in your family, for instance. So you have to drive everybody everywhere. I never saw it that way. I thought, I am the driver. I'm an excellent driver. And we have a family car, and that makes it so that we can do everything we need to do. And I have my husband bought me the kind of car I want to have. They would see it as, just sort of a little bit of pity sometimes. And then also just a lot of misunderstanding. So I really resisted that very actively, and Kirk did too. And our kids being in this co-op preschool, it was called Madrona Co-op. And to this day, both of my children will credit Madrona Co-op for some of their life lessons, and especially the way that they articulate their beliefs about how some of their philosophies about how they conduct themselves. And I am so, so proud of that, because it was that supportive environment that allowed them, not just my two children, but the children that were in the school, to be able to have their interests paid attention to, if there were values that their families had. We had just everything from the kinds of songs that the kids sang to the games they played. Some of these were things that were steeped in cultural traditions of the families. And Kirk would come every year. He would come and he would read to the kids and talk to them about Braille and have them show them how he conducts himself as a person who uses a long white cane to navigate for his mobility. And they would ask questions, just be their curious selves, and have an opportunity to have this appreciation and not see it as, oh, here's a person, not see Kirk, or rather Tyler and Rachel's dad, as somebody who couldn't do something, but someone who was doing things in a unique and different way that was just the right way for him. And so,
go on.
Yeah, no,
go
you
on.
go.
No, I was just thinking though, what you've demonstrated is that we have to create these spaces for people to be authentically who they are and not put our judgments on people. And when we allow people to show up in the totality of who they are, the benefit can be phenomenal if we allow that to happen. And so often we allow our judgments and our biases to get in the way of us fully appreciating the people that are sent to us, that can be lessons for us, and even people that can love us. And what you've demonstrated today is that, love can look beyond color, that love can really be something that is empowering and can really make a difference. It not only did it in y'all's relationship, I mean, you've been together 35 years, but to see how it's transformed who your children are and all of us who've been around you both. And so I want to say thank you for sharing who you are. I would love to get you back to talk more, because I know more about some of the challenges that you've had, and you both are just overcomers. And so I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, Roz, and telling people that love can conquer all. And you all are the epitome. You all are the epitome of doing that. So if people want to reach out to you and learn more about your story, how can folks reach you?
Well, people can find me on Facebook. My name is ROSLYN Adams, and that's a good way. I also have email that I'm happy to share, and my middle name is Annette. And when I was getting some support setting up my email, someone said, oh, you should use your middle name in your email. And it gets to be a little bit confusing, because even though my first name is ROSLYN, they advised me to put an A after ROSLYN. And so people a lot of times think my name is Roslyna. But it is ROSLYNA.Adams, which is spelled ADAMS, @gmail.com.
Roz, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story and telling us more about the power of the wonderful love that you and Kirk have. And you are such an inspiration to me and so many others. And I just want to say thank you for being on the show. This is another episode of The Tapestry. I am Dr. Francois Booker Drew. And again, this is a platform designed to share amazing stories, just like you heard, of people who overcome challenge and obstacles and still make it, and that we can learn from their lessons on how we can continue on this path of life. And so thanks again for tuning in. You can reach me at drfrancois.com or at info@drfrancois.com.
Thank you for having me, Francois.
Thank you for being on the show, Roz.
Okay. Talk to you again.
Thanks.